Right, so yesterday the government probably made the most extreme decision it's ever had to make that could have serious consequences, and that was suspending all exams for May and June, and also closing all schools starting on Monday. Okay, now in this video I'm going to give you my reaction to that, and there's a lot in this because there's a lot of knock-on effects something like this could have. But firstly, we've just got to talk about the timing of the decision. He said he wanted to keep schools open until after Easter. That's what his plan was. Or maybe like the week before Easter and then close the week before Easter. But it was impossible to do that because a lot of schools were already partially closing. Like at my school, the year 10s and year 9s were told not to come in. Teachers were trying to teach 2 lessons at once. And there were so many people off in schools across the country. There was hardly any point there being in school, and staff were pressured. So he had to make the decision now to close schools for next week. Also with exams, this was also a decision he had to make at this point in time, because he predicts that when I say he, I'm talking about Boris Johnson, he predicts, and all the people that work in government, they predict that the coronavirus will peak during exam time, and so therefore he can't exactly monitor it and say exams may or may not go ahead, and then like halfway through May when they start say, okay, they're going ahead now, because people wouldn't have done revision, because you've got to build up to it, and no one will revise if there's that uncertainty. And also, schools wouldn't have finished teaching respect. There's still some subjects, because I'm doing A-levels at the moment, there's still some subjects where we haven't finished for spec, and the teachers gave us loads of worksheets to finish for spec. So, he can't exactly decide that exams will go ahead then if some schools haven't finished teaching and haven't done solid revision with the students, because then this cohort for GCSEs and A-levels will get lower marks because they may not finish for spec and wouldn't have done all the revision previous years have done. There's still a lot of talk about doing them in the summer because there's not really been a definitive answer. He said that it would be cancelled for May and June, but a lot of people have spoke about doing them in the summer. Now I doubt this because the Educational Secretary said that there'll be none this academic year, and I think the summer sort of classes as this academic year. But again, the problem is he can't definitively say, right, we're doing them then, because we don't know how the virus will be then. In China, it slowed down significantly, but we don't know if the UK's outbreak will follow the same pattern that China's have. And also, people would have booked holidays, and if the coronavirus has died down enough for exams to go ahead, that must mean it's died down enough for people to go on holiday, providing hotels haven't gone bust or airlines haven't gone bust, and people would be uproared at that if they've booked holidays and they can actually go, because they have to do exams instead. And also, I don't think there'll be enough time to mark them. There has been talk about them marking it and then having till January to mark them, and then rejigging the academic year to do January to January instead of September to September. But that's a really, really big change, and I don't think that they would do such a drastic change. So my position on this, we'll hear more in the upcoming days, but I doubt they'll do them in the summer. And also, if they change the uni year, they'll have no one in the first year between September and January. So they'll lose out on a lot of money. And also, if they change the academic year, the second years and third years and fourth years, if they stayed that long, they won't have accommodation during that time. So the university will lose out on a lot of money that the government can't fund. The government should try and give universities money, but with the current state of this virus, they're going to have to give everyone money, and they just can't do that unless they print money. And as we know, that is a highly risky strategy that causes inflation. But I think, like, no one knows what's going on. This is just all speculative, which doesn't give students who maybe should be revising any kind of motivation to revise. I think he should have come up with a plan when he announced that schools were shutting as to what would happen to exams. Like, even if it was just a maybe if this happens sort of thing. Like, you could have said they will happen in the summer if the coronavirus is gone. Or just saying they will happen at some point before the end of the calendar year. Something like that would have made schools more aware of what was happening and they could have planned ahead. But he's left a lot of question marks in teachers' minds, and even head teachers at schools don't know what's going on. So I think all the announcements should have come at the same time. Now, in terms of grades that students will get, you can't really give students a UCAS grades for A-levels because that's purposefully higher to give you a better chance of getting to university. And you can't really give what students want to get them into that university, because the teachers may be like, you need an A to get into university, but you're only getting Ds. I'm going to give you an A because you need that opportunity. So I don't think it's fair for teachers to do it, because teachers will of course be biased, and but they should be biased. Okay, this sounds really contradictory, but I think they should be biased, because we're seriously disadvantaged from not doing the exams, because most people get higher marks in the actual exam than all the tests they've done. Not always, but normally you go up because you push hard and do lots of revision before an exam. So you peak at the point of the exam and you get the best grade you can do in the exam. So if teachers aren't biased, this cohort of GCSEs and A-levels will be significantly disadvantaged, because their predicted grades, even by the teachers at this point in time, aren't necessarily what they would have got if they'd have done the exam. And this is such a dilemma, because I'll always have to explain to employers during my life, yeah, I didn't actually sit those exams. So I think I'll be disadvantaged, because I'll be competing with people who have pushed hard to get a good grade and have done revision to get a good grade, and I've never had the opportunity to better what my school think I could get. And there'll always be a massive question mark in my life as to whether I could have done better than that. So there's no solution. The solution of doing them in the summer obviously has drawbacks, like I've said. The solution of giving predicted grades obviously has a drawback, like I've just explained. The issue of teachers giving you grades is obviously a drawback, and it's just a massive dilemma. Like, the world's not seen anything like this before. If you're alive during this outbreak of the coronavirus, this is a great story you'll be able to tell in the future, because nothing like this has ever happened before, and if we do get herd immunity, it might never happen again. Like, I don't think they've ever fully cancelled exams before. It's completely unknown to everyone, and you've got to feel sorry for people, because people are going to have to go into self-isolation. Like, if university starts in September, I'll have 6 months of doing nothing. There's no sport, shops might be closed, there's absolutely nothing for anyone to do. So it's like we're in a war and we can't go out because the Germans might bomb us. It's just an absolute mad scenario. Okay, so the government also announced that key workers, so the children of key workers, still have to go into school. Now, I don't agree with this, because as more and more cases happen, it goes like that. You're putting all the kids that are still having to go into school at risk, and all the teachers that have to be in school at risk, and there might even be no teachers because they might all be self-isolating. So, but what else do you do with those children? It's like, what do you do with them? I think if they'd have been more prepared, those children whose parents are key workers should have gone and stayed with their grandparents and been in isolation with their grandparents, because they're probably the only people that could look after them, before there was a high chance that the grandparents would get it from the child. So this thing to close schools, it's very reactionary to what's been going on. If he'd have planned ahead, he could have said, okay, the children of key workers must stay with grandparents and they must all be in isolation. Because I don't think them going to school is a good idea, because my mum works in a school. She may still have to go in after Monday to help these special kids and the kids whose parents are key workers, and that puts her at major risk of getting the coronavirus, especially if cases are just going to go like that. Maybe not at the moment, but in 2 months, if they're still having to go to school, then, you know, it puts a lot of people at serious risk. Another issue is with special schools. So, special schools that have kids that are vulnerable to the disease. They may have some kind of illness that means that's why they go to the special school. And that's a major issue as well, because according to the government advice, they still have to go in on Monday, but they're particularly vulnerable, so they could contract it and pass it to everyone in that school, and because they're particularly vulnerable, there'll be quite a lot of deaths within that school. So I really don't know what they're going to do with that either. And also, people have argued, the reason why they didn't shut school was people argued that kids would still meet up. But if you go to the park to play football with, like, 4 people, that's better than you mixing with, like, 200 at school. Because imagine you have 6 lessons a day. You sit on a different table with different people in those days, and you might sit with different people at lunch or get on the bus with different people. You're still interacting with less people if you just meet up with a friend or go and play football than you would be at school. So it's definitely the right decision. And if he shuts shops and everything shuts down, then those kids don't have anything to do. So the fact they're still meeting up instead of going to school isn't an issue. So that just proves that this is the right decision, basically, and it had to be done now. And if you've got any thoughts, leave them in the comments, and that's my reaction to it.